Hello and welcome to Paranormal Overtones and this our long overdue and much awaited second episode. Today I'll be talking to my sister Adele about her beliefs and her experiences, mainly at her first home on the High Street in Winsford in Cheshire. To paint a picture of Adele, she's in her early 40s. Work-wise, she spent 20 years in car finance, finishing her tenure as operations and compliance manager, and now she runs her own online record shop. Listen now as we explore her stories and experiences. So, hello, Adele, and thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be here.
As alluded to in the first episode, obviously you've experienced quite a lot of stuff over the years, similar to me, and a lot of that obviously pertained to your old house. But that wasn't the start of things, was it?
No, no, it wasn't. I had some experiences earlier on in life. I think the first experience I had was as a toddler. Um, my granddad had recently passed away, and my auntie was taking me to bed. I was staying at my nan's, and as I was going up the stairs, I was waving and smiling and saying, "There's Granddad." And my auntie was quite freaked out. She was like, "No, sorry, he's not here anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, he's there, he's on the bed." And she was like, "No, no, he's not." And she was quite happy to put me to bed and leg it down the stairs again. So that was the first encounter I had.
So that was at again a house that was touched upon in the first episode, wasn't it? That was the house with the long corridors that, like
Yes,
say, it was Nan's old house,
yes,
the old Victorian property. So yeah, same house, same spirit, different experience. Um,
yeah,
but
definitely.
that wasn't it, was it?
No, so in the same property again, I always had sensations of somebody being there or seeing shadows out of the like or silhouettes out of the corner of your eye in different rooms in the house as well and at different times in my life. Obviously growing up in that house, we used to sort of play in there, play hide and seek, but in different rooms. So the cellar, as you know, was quite spooky, and in there you would always feel as though there was something or someone there. The corridor, obviously the long corridor in the dark, you could feel like, the hairs on your arms would raise, you knew there was somebody there.
It was palpable, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
it's as I said, it felt the house felt cavernous, and it was as though there were things or shadows around every turn.
Yes, yeah, definitely. There was definitely some energy in that house.
Yeah, and it wasn't just my nan.
No, no.
So yeah, so that was obviously on mum's side, but you said about another experience. I remember you saying about this when obviously when we were younger as well. That was to do with dad's dad, wasn't it?
It was, yes. So, my granddad, Lamb, he passed away when I was in my teens, and I was very close with my granddad. Spent a lot of time there growing up, and I was in bed crying, couldn't sleep, really, really upset. And I suddenly felt this like pressure as though somebody had sat on the bed next to me, and something touched my hand. And instantly it was like a weight lifted. I just felt so calm, and all of that sort of emotion and the grief just seemed to disappear.
So it was a fully reassuring presence. Do
Absolutely.
do you think that was granddad?
I don't know. If it wasn't, I would say it felt like it was, how do you put it? It was a loving sort of, like you say, reassuring, like a family member.
Hmm.
Um, whether or not it was my granddad, I don't know.
It's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? That, like you say, it's this sort of comforting presence that's occurred. Obviously, the house that we grew up in didn't really have any age to it at all. It wasn't Victorian, Edwardian, Georgian, anything like that. But then even Dad, who is, well, historically has been quite a vehement skeptic, um, when he sort of needed that level of support, he had the experience that he had with, was it his granddad, Ernest?
Yeah,
Um, so our dad actually had an experience where he was sat outside having a smoke. He was about to go in for quite a serious operation, and he noticed something out the corner of his eye. And as he turned, he saw his grandfather, who looked him in the eyes, nodded, said, "All right, lad," and then disappeared. No, like ethereal mist, no ectoplasm or anything, nothing to sort of say that he was there in the first place. Just, all right, lad, just like a one liner. That's it. One and done. Um, so is it potentially, could it have been him, maybe?
possibly. Yeah. I mean, it's the same sort of reassurance, I suppose, but in a form that you're maybe familiar with.
Mm,
Um, and obviously for me being close to my granddad, I would assume it would have been him, but it could have been another family member. So yeah.
yeah. Patriarchal paranormal. So, was there anything else? Is there anything that you've never told me? Like, let's put it that way, in the younger years.
Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I know we had the same experience with the shadows and like the dancing across the landing.
Oh, that was
Um,
freaky.
yeah, that was very freaky. So I know we obviously both shared that experience at the same time. I think, to be honest, I think everything else happened when I moved to the house.
So let's talk about the house then. So describe the house to anyone else that's listening right now. Describe the house, not
Ooh.
necessarily the experiences in the first instance.
Okay, so it's a traditional sort of 1850s, 1860s terraced house, end terrace, quite a large property, which obviously had then been extended. It was originally part of a bigger house, so there was three terraces together, and they were all built by a doctor, and he owned all three properties to put his family in.
Okay.
So it was almost like a mini estate, shall we say, at the time. It had outbuildings and like the three properties. So it was quite a big terrace connection.
Yeah, it would have been quite a sizable property, wouldn't it? For that area of the town, especially at that
Yes.
time as well, it would have
Yeah.
been quite sizable.
Yes, definitely. But obviously over the years, it's been split up. And ours was the end one that had three bedrooms. But the downstairs was, a good size. So obviously there was lots of original features in the house when we first moved in, which was quite nice. The sort of the Victorian tiling in what would have been the kitchen and like the cornices and things like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, a traditional Victorian working class house.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and this is the bit now where it's like you get the record scratching, and it's like everything was perfectly fine until one fateful night. Um, so you moved in. Um, if I recall, you had sight of the original deeds for the property, didn't you? Was that not long after you'd moved in?
Yeah,
Um, so you obviously had an idea of the age of the house, the age of the building itself.
yeah.
How long was it after moving in did you start to experience things, and what did you start to experience?
Yeah, I would say obviously it's initially moving in, you've got all the sort of the hustle and bustle of decorating and getting furniture. And if anything did occur during that time, it was so minor we didn't sort of pick up on it. But obviously, as you get settled and as you start to um, sort of understand the house, you start to notice things. So I'd probably say with probably 12 months
Okay.
um, from moving in, and that's when things sort of started to happen. Obviously, you spent a lot of time there with us, and from you've had experiences, and obviously that there's additional experiences along that as well. So I know obviously from your previous episode, you said about um watching Most Haunted, and having floating candles, making shapes in the bowl, and and feeling like there was somebody there, or
Just
yeah.
to interject, just because just that sentence, floating candles, it conjures up images in minds. So just to underline, that's not literal floating candles like flying around the room. We're talking like old school, early noughties. Let's have a nice living room. We'll have some candles that float in a small bowl on one side. That's what we mean by floating candles. Just so that's not lost in translation.
No, that would be fun. Um, yeah, so obviously, as you mentioned, the floating candles in the bowl of water um floated into an upside down crucifix. We had footsteps on the stairs, so it sounded like children running up and down the stairs, like they were playing a prank on you.
Hmm.
Um, the feeling, as we say, of being watched, or that there was somebody in the room, particularly in the back bedroom
Yeah.
in the house. So although I had cats, you knew the cats were around. This was a different energy, a different presence. And various people who stayed in the house and in that room agreed that there was something. And you didn't have to mention it. They would say to you, there's something in that room, or it's cold, or it's warm, or I felt like there was somebody in there with me. So various people obviously gave the same account. Um, Obviously we had cupboard doors opening and the fridge opening at random when nobody was in the room. And you're checking the seals on the fridge to make sure you didn't just leave it open and does it again. The kettle switching on itself was another regular. Um, we also had obviously, as I've just said, the cats. We also had a dog. And during our time there, they would stare at certain areas in the house,
Yeah.
and there'd be nothing there, and you'd sort of wave your hand in front of the face, and it was almost like they were in a trance. Like there was something in an area of a room, and you couldn't detract from it.
Yeah. They just seem to be transfixed on this one focal point and they wouldn't
Yeah,
take their attention away from it.
yeah. And sometimes it wasn't just one of the animals; it would be two or three of them would actually look at the same place. Um, which was obviously one you could understand, you could think maybe, oh, they can see something I can't see. But then when they're all doing it's a bit freaky.
Yeah, a little bit disconcerting, especially if it's like the depths of winter, it's pitch black outside and you've got three cats and a dog staring at something that you can't see yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, the way that the house was structured, the kitchen actually had like a window through to the dining room, as I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
Um, and if you were either in the kitchen looking back through the house or in the living room looking through to the kitchen, you would regularly get that corner of your eye, there's somebody stood there.
Yeah.
And when you then turn to reassure yourself, God, what am I on about? It would disappear. It wasn't there anymore. But it was always a figure. I would assume male, but I don't know. Um,
How
ju
would you describe, like height wise, etc.? How would you personally, before I sort of interject with my, because yes, I experienced something similar a couple of times, but how would you describe it?
the reason I say male is because I sort of look at how you or dad would be stood in those areas of the house, and that's what it was like. It was somebody 6 foot, more of a male build.
Yeah.
Because of it, how do I put this? It's it had to be of a reasonable size to grab your eye.
Yeah, it wasn't just like when you think you see something out of the corner of your
No,
eye and you turn and there's nothing there. It did do that, but it was actual tangible
yeah,
sort of visual that you could
yes,
see. It wasn't like a blurry, oh, what was that? It
no,
was
no.
definitely,
It was a definite figure. And like I say, it was almost as though you or dad were stood in that position in the house. There was that full male presence.
yeah. To be honest, I saw something similar twice. But both times it was that now the bathroom at this house was actually through the back of the kitchen, so the kitchen and the bathroom were both extended off the back of the original property. So you'd come out of the bathroom through a 4, 5 foot long corridor, door at
Yeah,
either end, and then you'd be into the back of the kitchen. The two times I witnessed what Adele's just said about there were at the actual back door. Now, Dad at the time smoked. I, to my sins, still smoke. And then your other half obviously smokes as well.
yeah,
Um, that was where you would go for a smoke. So to see a figure stood at that back door wasn't something that you wouldn't expect, was it?
yeah,
It was quite a common occurrence. And that's you pretty much exactly described what I saw those two times. It was something I wouldn't say pitch black, but it was
no,
something dark, about 6 foot in height and stocky. And like you say, it was if you were to kind of cover me or my dad in black paint and stamp us on a piece of paper, that's pretty much what you get.
yeah.
So it's slightly comforting, but simultaneously disconcerting that it's exactly the same thing. Um, but at least it corroborates and hopefully means that we're not losing our collective marbles.
Well, yeah, absolutely. What else happened in that house? Right. One of the things that really sort of put me on edge, was that my husband, woke me up in the middle of the night to tell me that I had a soldier leaning over me while I slept.
Okay.
Um, so Adam was absolutely adamant that there was this person in the room initially, and then he's like, "Oh, he's walking over to you," and I'm like, "I can't see anything, Adam. What are you on about?" And he said, "No, he's in military uniform, and he's looking at you. He's like investigating you." At which point, I was very, very freaked out, and I don't think I've ever run so fast down the stairs, just to get out of that room. And it's the only time it happened, but it was so vivid for him. Um,
Now, Adam, I'm not really interested in history, military, anything of that ilk, is he?
no,
Did you
no,
ask him to describe what this soldier was wearing?
I did, yes. So from what I can remember, because obviously it's quite a few years ago now, it was like an early military uniform, so I would say probably World War One.
Okay.
Um, it was sort of like a green. Um, he had a hat on, but he had sort of darker hair. Um, and that's about all I can remember, to be honest.
No, but it does, doesn't it? Like you say, it kind of it paints a picture of early 20th century military, with it being the green uniforms. It's a step away from the red coats, and transitioning onwards, because you'd be talking even in the late 1890s, the British Army still wore redcoats.
Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely post-Boer War, um, and given obviously like the stories of the Pals brigades, etc., in World War One, the whole country got up and fought. So it wouldn't surprise you to potentially learn that there would be people or spirits of people that were from this area that were in World War One. So it tells the age of the house as well. It all kind of slots together quite neatly. That
Yeah.
potentially would explain it. So yeah, but I can't say as I blame you to kind of sprint down the stairs when you get told that there's just this random dude that you can't actually see is like leaning over inches from your face.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being told that and you not being able to see it is quite scary, but then also feeling that there's somebody near was the sort of the second thing, and I was like, no, I can't do this right now.
When you say feeling, was that like a sensation, or was it like you could actually sort of that you feel their breath on your face, or
Just like, as though there was somebody like sort of leaning over, I don't know how to explain. When if I sort of leaned over you, you would know I was there.
yeah, so it's like that
It's
knowing sensation of
that
being watched.
closeness.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. No, I get you. I get you. Um, so that was obviously something that you personally couldn't see but experienced. But if we loop back to obviously the fridge, the kettle, the stairs, etc.,
Yeah.
obviously the way that I try and approach things these days is quite pragmatic. Is there any degree of doubt in your mind? Let's start with the stairs. Is there any degree of doubt in your mind that the stairs was anything but paranormal?
No.
Why would you say that?
Because the stairs had an exact sound, each step you knew which step somebody was on.
Yeah,
Um and obviously having animals in the house, you know what they sound like when they move around the house. And the footsteps that I heard, and there was nobody on the stairs at this point,
hmm
were like children. They weren't full-size adults. They weren't animals. They were the noise that they made was in between the two. The pressure, like as though like the pressure.
yeah,
So the weight of a child would make a slight creak, whereas an adult would make a heavier creak. So it wasn't an adult. Obviously, there was nobody there, but it was the running. It was the sort of the running up the steps and the running back down the steps that would be more sort of suited to a child, mischievous.
yeah. But this is what I'm loving right now is the sheer fact that it was your bloody house. You get the nice little, oh, let's have a laugh. We'll run up and down the stairs, ghosts. I get the sinister stomping up the stair ghost when I'm in the house on my own, absolutely fucking bricking it. Because, like you say, the bedroom I was in, I could see straight down the stairs. There was no one on the stairs.
Yeah,
And as you've said, the stairs, they were a distinct pattern and made a distinct noise. So, two steps out of the well, what would have been the kitchen, a 90-degree left turn on like a semi um landing, which was what, probably about 3 foot in width at
yeah,
the widest point. And then you do your 90-degree turn, as I say, and then it was up 11 steps, another small landing, which would take you into the back bedroom, and then another step up into the two front bedrooms.
yeah,
It was a very distinct pattern. Um, so I'm glad you actually said that they made a distinct noise and you could tell where people were on them stairs because, again, it's something that obviously I alluded to myself and said about, but to have someone else say it, it's always, I wouldn't want to say like confirmation bias, but it's nice to hear it come from someone else. And everyone's going to be thinking, well, your brother and sister, you've plotted all this out before you've come on. No, we started chatting. We were just catching up because we've not really spoken much this week. And then we just jumped straight into it. So for, to have you corroborate and underline the fact that you have no doubt in your mind what happened on the stairs is paranormal is pretty bloody fantastic, to be fair.
Yeah, that house had a lot of energy. I mean, I wouldn't say sinister. I think that was quite. I think you just maybe got them on a bad day. Um, but there was definitely energy in that house, and I wouldn't say it was one energy. I think there was multiple energies in there, um, for different reasons and different feelings. Um, I mean, certain rooms you could even get a smell, which I think that is an unusual one.
That
Um,
was primarily the back bedroom, wasn't it?
yeah,
If I remember rightly, you said to try and cast my mind back now. It was like floral perfumey.
yeah, like an old lady's perfume, like the old-fashioned floral sweet perfumes of, you know, long like days long gone.
Ah,
Um,
Odenan's handbag.
yes, Oda Nan's handbag, yeah. Yeah, but what you would expect, a traditional crimpling dress nanny to wear,
Mm,
But yeah, that would just appear out of nowhere and then disappear again within a couple of sniffs. It was gone. So that was very unusual. Um, but to tie in with talking about nanas, um, obviously I had Ellie while I was in that house. And when Ellie was very little, she had a chalkboard. I don't know if you remember the easel that she had, Mike.
yes, she did, didn't she? She had it set up well, initially it was in the living room, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Ellie absolutely loved to draw and to scribble, and I mean, she still loves art now. But she sat there and she was drawing and she was chatting away. And I just sort of said to her, I said, "Oh, what you drawing? Oh, I'm just drawing pictures for Nana Dan." I said, "Who? For Nana Dan? I'm talking to Nana Dan and I'm drawing pictures." So this obviously shocked me. Adam overheard the conversation and we both agreed we'd never talked about her. And obviously she'd never met her because she passed away before she was born. So Nana Dan was my great nan, my dad's nan.
Yeah.
Um, and Ellie was having a conversation with her and drawing a picture for her in our house that Nana Dan had never been to because again, she'd passed away much earlier on in life. And we'd never discussed it in front of Ellie because, with her being so young. So that was a shock, but it was at the same time it was nice. Ellie was very at ease. She was at peace with it. She was, just chatting away, as little ones do. They're just full of life and dead chatty.
Yeah, just
So
just quite comforting, really.
yeah, absolutely. It wasn't anything dark or sinister. She was just having a chat with her nanny.
So she was obviously quite happy just chatting away with a chalkboard, drawing pictures, and having a lovely old time with someone that you couldn't see yet again, um, and someone that technically she shouldn't have really known about.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So, did anything else happen at the high street?
Um, I don't think so. I think we've covered most of that now.
Okay, what else, obviously, have you experienced in life then? Obviously, the high street was kind of your first home, your formative home, so to speak, carried you
Mhm.
into what would have been your mid-30s.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last few years?
Well, the feelings of having somebody around me when there is no one around me, obviously that started in that house more so. And I don't know whether it's age or I don't know, reassurance, but I still feel that even in the new house. Um, so sometimes just if you're having like a bad day or you're just sort of contemplating, you just feel like there's a presence, there's somebody there.
So
Uh,
again, is it that reassuring presence, or do you think it could potentially be an attachment from the high street?
that's a very good question. Of which I don't know the answer. Sometimes it feels reassuring and sometimes it's just there. So I really wouldn't like to say. I would like to think it was a member of the family, but all I can say is it's not a negative or evil sort of presence. It's a positive, it's a light energy, it's like yeah, it's reassurance or just a companion, I suppose. But yeah, that happens every now and again. And obviously I've been in this house now for nearly 7 years, and I've experienced that the whole time I've been here.
And just for the avoidance of doubt as well, that there was nothing previously on the land where the new house is, was there? It's a fairly new build house, like what, 20, 25 years old potentially?
It's about 17 years old. And prior to these houses being here, it was a little woodland area
Yeah.
behind the old Victorian houses of St George's Road. Now, obviously, that those houses on there are sort of late 1800s. A lot of them have sort of outbuildings, and a few of them are actually quite grand. They were like upmarket
Hmm.
houses of their time. And this was just like a small wooded area behind there. So nothing that I'm aware of.
Essentially wooded wasteland, really,
Yeah,
behind the boundary, the rear boundary of those Victorian houses. So
yeah.
that there shouldn't really be a footprint of anything, is kind of what I was getting at. That it's not been built on sacred ground or anything of that ilk.
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, Dad obviously said to me he used to come bird watching here because he used to know some of the families on St George's Road. So he actually knew the area before we moved into the house here.
Hmm. So yeah, so it's just again, it's that sense of having someone there.
Yeah,
So has that happened anywhere else?
yeah. Um, our offices that well, I say our offices, the offices where I used to work, I've had quite a few strange feelings or heard strange noises there. I know obviously you've experienced things there yourself.
Hmm.
Um, but over the years, again, corner of your eye, silhouettes through like glass panels indoors.
Yeah.
And then when you open the door, there's nobody there. Strange noises when the building was empty. So if I opened up in a morning, um, sometimes on my own or sometimes with another colleague, and we would hear noises even though we were the first people in the building, and you would hear like tapping or footsteps, or you'd think you'd hear voices in rooms, but then when you went in them, there was nothing there, which was very odd. Um,
Try doing it at 1:30 in the morning when the alarm's gone off and you have to check
yeah,
the entire place.
yeah, you
That
definitely you trumped me on that one.
um speaking of which, actually, not the voices side of things, but in the office, literally yesterday, um I was sat at my desk, and uh to the left is kind of the thoroughfare into the kitchen, but you can hear the doors. So if someone enters or exits the corridor that comes through into the back office and the kitchen, you can hear the doors. There's like the noise when they disconnect from the seal. You can hear the airflow, and then they thunk too because they have the standard sort of fire door lever arms on them. And sat at the desk and talking to the colleague that sits to my right, and surprised him by just going, "Peripheral vision shadow." And he was like, "What do you mean?" It's like something's just walked as though it's come through the corridor and gone towards the kitchen. And this colleague, when I first told him about the experience, is when I went to disarm the alarm that night, and the disembodied voices, the tapping, kind of turned white as a sheet. Um, so at the point I said disembodied sorry, peripheral vision shadow as it was, he kind of went quiet for a good quarter of an hour afterwards. So whether he was kind of expecting something to happen, I don't know. But yeah, as as much as you're not there anymore, there is still stuff that is happening there.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that'll ever change.
no, but the unfortunate thing is we can't blame you for the happenings.
No.
It's not something that's attached itself to you. It's like, oh, let's go and torment her today at work.
Yeah.
It is still very much things that are happening. But it's just interesting that obviously the experiences that you've had, experiences that I've had as well, it's not been fixed to one location. It seems to be not so much that it's followed you through life, but you've experienced things at various stages and points in life and at various locations as well.
Yeah. And I think maybe because you embrace it, you're more open to it.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, because these things have happened and I th you like me are interested in getting to the bottom of things, finding out whether it's paranormal. Um, I think you're more aware of it as though you're tuning into it.
Yeah.
And I think that that maybe, I may have had other experiences when I was younger, but not realize that's what they were. But obviously, as I've got older and I'm obviously more intrigued by it now, I suppose it's it's more frequent, but it's not scary.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
get that.
I think it's much more like an everyday thing. It's not out of the ordinary anymore.
So before we wrap things up, I'm going to give you a short question and an open question as well.
Okay.
So, close question. Is there life after death?
Yes.
Okay. And open question. What is your understanding of what a spirit or a ghost is? What kind of leanings do you take? Are we talking spirits, souls, energy? What's your personal take on it?
I personally believe it's energy. Um, I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't any other form out there. For me, everything is an energy. Energy never ends. It just moves.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that obviously when you do pass, your physical body is no longer here, but your energy is, and it continues. Um, and I think that that's how I've sort of come to terms with everything I've experienced. It's an energy. And as I've said to you, I feel things or I've felt in a certain way and to me that's got to be an energy. It's not just a visual, it's an actual, in the skin feeling.
Yeah, no, completely get that. So it's essentially kind of um, expanding on, not that he'd want it used in this way, but it's essentially kind of like down Carl Sagan's route of we're all made of star stuff. We're all made of energy. It's boundless, it's infinite, and it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah,
Makes perfect sense.
it's quite logical. Well, to me, that's logical. Think I don't or haven't experienced anything that's been um sinister or evil. It's quite human energy, I think is probably the best way of describing it. It's personal.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like a spook or a spirit or, it feels more grounded than that.
So we're not talking like vengeful spirits or like fists transfigurating out the back of the heads like in a popular horror film or
No.
Japanese women climbing out of TVs, etc., etc.
Oh, no, no. Absolutely not. I don't think I'd be this calm if that was happening.
Well, on that much lighter note than I was kind of expecting, that brings us to the close. So, thank you for joining me tonight and chatting over this, and obviously sharing your experiences over the years with those who listen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, what do you think of Adele's experiences? Of a theory that a family member may be keeping a reassuring, watchful eye over her and her family? Do you agree with Adele that there's life after death, or maybe you've got a different view about what exactly a ghost or spirit is? Get in touch and let us know either on our socials or you can email us on paranormalovertones@gmail.com. If you can't get enough and really want to scratch that paranormal itch, you can find our blog on WordPress, our posts on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook, and we have new content coming soon on YouTube, so be sure to check that out as well. If, however, you liked Adele and want to support her endeavour, search for Rabbit Hole Records. You'll find them all over our social media, and you can drop them a like, and if you're so inclined, you can buy a vinyl or two as well. It's now very early in the morning. It's starting to rain. Not sure whether you'll be able to hear that or not. So, time for bed, I think. Once again, this has been Paranormal Overtones. I've been Mike Lamb, and you have hopefully enjoyed listening. Good night.